Welcome in. Check the mic. NFL draft review. We're back here, Sam. The draft's over. We did it. 257 picks are in, and we're here to review not every single pick, but high-level review of this year's draft.
Dude, it's been a marathon. It's been a marathon, multiple days. We've been covering as much as we can. Whole thing of day one, live day one, recap day one, live day two, recap day two, and then a little bit more, after the rounds all the way through day three. And now we're back to recap the whole thing.
So here's what we're gonna do, Sam. High level review tonight. I'm just like Mr. Positive right now. I'm feeling good for a lot of teams. And so I'm the Dan O of draft graders. I've got like 10 top 5 drafts right now. 10 top 5. We're going to go through our best drafts, our favorite picks, but we're going to go team by team over the next few days. So starting tomorrow, 2 teams per day, or 2 divisions per day, 8 teams per day, Sunday through Wednesday. So be ready for your teams. I believe we're starting with the Norths tomorrow, AFC and NFC North. I'm going to go live and review every single team. That all sound good? The Dan O of draft grading. Is that a good person to be here?
Yeah, I think so.
20 top 10 quarterbacks. All right, let's start with our top 5 favorite drafts. We both put our own little list together. What are your top 5 favorite drafts? I struggled with this. Did you struggle with this as I did?
I did, to the point where I had 6. I had it narrowed down to 6, and I couldn't remove one, so I just literally at random cut one out. And then I was hoping that you would have one of the ones I cut out on your 5, and you did. So it works out okay.
Yeah, I saw yours come. I saw yours come through, and I wanted to mix it up, make sure we got some extra love in there for some teams.
Yeah, I kind of assumed that the one I was going to cut was good enough that it would make your list anyway. But I did. Like I tweeted this out, right? And we've talked about this a bit before. Collectively, I think the NFL is getting smarter. I think you see this in free agency, you see it with trades, you see it in the draft. You see it's harder now to find the mark. It's harder to find the dumb franchise that's just doing idiot things left, right, and center. Everybody's doing a pretty good job. And so I keep reaching these drafts. I'm like, there's so many drafts I think that are absolutely killing it right now. So yeah, I really struggled to nail it down, but I have my list of 5. Am I just going through all 5 of them?
I would just list your 5 and then we'll talk about them. And then I'll list my 5. We'll talk about them and go from there.
All right. My 5, and I'm not putting them in order. I couldn't even narrow it down to 5, let alone ranking them.
Listen. We're free now, man. This is our show. We don't have anybody saying we're going to SEO, top 5 list. You got to rank them 1, 2, 3, 4. We can do whatever we want. All right? All tied for first. They're all tied for first.
Right.
Whatever you want.
Nobody's going to force me to write a listicle. It's not going to happen.
That's right. No listicles here.
All right. New England Patriots. I thought the Patriots absolutely killed it in this draft. There were a couple of things like minor quibbles here or there, but overall they kept grabbing players that I loved. I thought this was a great draft. I think the Cleveland Browns had a fantastic draft. People hate this, right? Because it's weird. It's not a normal draft. But I think if you step back for a second, divorce yourself from the Shedeur Sanders drama, and just look at the players they acquired from the starting point that they were in and say, this is what the Browns are going to end up getting in addition to a first-round draft pick next year. I think the Browns had a spectacular draft. The Kansas City Chiefs, same thing. Like they just kept getting players that I thought were incredible value all the way through the draft, which always somehow seems more impressive when you're drafting at the bottom of each round. And, you look up and, oh, wow, look at this amazing player they got at the bottom of this round. The Raiders, I love the Raiders draft. The Genty pick is interesting because, it's right at the top of the range of like how much value you want to put into a running back and all those kinds of things. But overall, I thought they did a spectacular job of like mixing really good, surefire things and perfect calculated risks. Love that draft. And then the Seahawks. I love some of the picks they picked. They, again, combination. They didn't overthink things. They grabbed players that fit areas of need. And they roll the dice with a high upside quarterback in Jalen Milroe, who I think is a fantastic character guy in addition to having the talent that he could turn into a quarterback in the future.
Yeah, I don't disagree with any on that list. Raiders could be like the biggest wild card. I know our friend Arif said they're the most fun. I mean, when you talk about Jack Bash and Dante Thornton as weapons, Ashton Genty as a weapon, JJ Pegues is a defensive tackle who's a 320-pound direct snap and fullback type of player for Ole Miss. It's a lot to like about the Raiders. Darian Porter at corner, just fun players there. Yeah, I like that list. I'll go through my top 5. There's some crossover. We could talk about some of these teams a little bit more in depth. But my top 5, I started with the Browns. Here's the challenge in all of this, right? Usually when the draft grades come out for everybody, usually the teams that draft 8 or 10 times, more than your 7, are going to get the highest grades. But and we don't always do this the right way based off like, what did you start with? The Vikings started with 4 picks. Did they maximize what they started the weekend with? Or do you factor in, we always play this game, do you factor in the moves that led to losing the picks? But again, if you came into the weekend and you said where the Browns are as an organization that needs a reset and needs future just resources, I think they did that. And then again, from a process perspective, you say, hey, they've got no quarterback, and they come away with Shedeur Sanders and Dylan Gabriel. And look, we're higher on Gabriel than a lot of other people are. Fine, I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
If you're 100% on your QB evaluations and you don't like a guy, don't take him. Don't waste it. But until you're 100%, take some shots at quarterback to try to solve your problem. So they have 2 young QBs to compete. They traded down, got Mason Graham. They picked up an extra first rounder, added a lot of talent to the team. A lot of good football players. 2 good running backs. Carson Schwessinger, I love it. Linebacker, Harold Fanitz. I cannot disagree with what the Browns have done as a whole. I thought the Baltimore Ravens did a really nice job. We'll talk about the Mike Green pick throughout the weekend and everything. I mean, that's the big wild card. You got a top 10, top 15 type of player in round 2. Malachi Starks, really good football player in round 1. You go into round 6, there's some players you like. That's the other tricky part, evaluate and draft, Sam. Like when we love players and they go in rounds 5, 6, and 7, and you can't like overweigh it because they went there for a reason. They might not get opportunities, but I think the Ravens did a nice job just adding talent throughout the draft. I have the Chiefs as well. Every single time, Josh Simmons, guy that could have gone a lot higher, might solve their long-term left tackle problem. Omar Norman-Lott. They get Jalen Royals a little bit later on day 3 as a receiver. Noel Williams at cornerback, just a lot of talent at the right times, right? They just kept picking what seemingly one of the best 2 or 3 players on the board at each time at pretty important positions. Arizona Cardinals, similar for me. And we'll talk about their entire offseason. I didn't actually have them as the best offseason. One of the best offseasons for me. Their defensive line overhaul. Walter Nolan in the first round here. Will Johnson in the second round. I mean, they just added so many bodies on that defensive line. So really loving what the Cardinals did. And then the New York Giants. I had to put the Giants in there. And maybe Cam Scatterbo put me over the top on day 3. Maybe that's what put me over the top. But the Giants make the right move at the top to go Abdul Carter. They get Darius Alexander with the top pick of round 3. So now you're looking at when the listicles come out this offseason, Sam, the articles that are lists, and somebody out there in Bleacher Reports putting their top defensive lines out there, and PFF's putting their top defensive lines out there, the Giants are coming to mind at the top, right? We're considering the Giants in the top 3 or 4. Great foundation that they've laid there. And then they give up 2 threes to trade up for Jackson Dart. And again, process guy. You took a shot on a quarterback. You gave up 2 threes. Great. Do that at pick 25. I don't know if Jackson Dart's going to – he's got starter goods. He could be a good starter. You had to take that shot, and they did it. You had Scatterbo in the 4th. And, yeah, you're ticking a lot of boxes for me if you're the Giants. So I put them in my top 5 and just really love the direction, the process and the direction they seem to be going. If they win 4 games this year, hey, Joe Shane's out, Brian Daboll's out. But I honestly think that the foundation they've laid the last couple of years, maybe minus quarterback, if Dart doesn't work out, it's a pretty good foundation that they've laid the last couple seasons.
The Giants were the team that I cut from my list. They were on my initial list of 6 that didn't make the cut when I went down to 1. Somebody sent me a tweet. Who was it? What was his name on Twitter? Gerd Dog. On Twitter sent me this thing where if you just rearrange the picks that the Browns players were drafted at and then forget what happened this weekend. So forget that Shedeur went on this crazy historic fall. And if you were told before the draft that the Browns would come out of this draft having taken Mason Graham at 5, Shedeur Sanders at 33, so the top of the second round, Carson Schwessinger at 36, also the top of the second round, Quinshon Judkins at 67, Harold Fannin at 94, Dylan Sampson at 126 and then Dylan Gabriel at 144 and get a 2026 first round pick out of the Jags,
yes,
you would say that's knocking it out of the park. Like home run hit, one of the best things they could possibly have done with this draft. You know, when everyone was saying, do they take quarterback at the top of the draft? Do they go a different position? They end up going neither. They trade down a few spots. But if you were saying that was their draft haul in that exact order, you'd be like, that's one of the best drafts you could possibly have. It's only because we saw this weirdness of, you know, Shador falling out of the first round and then falling through day 2 and then being all the way to the 5th round and them taking, you know, Dylan Gabriel for him, that it's like, it can't possibly be good because it's weird. It's strange. It's not what we thought prior going into the draft. But I think you look at the players and you say, that's a great haul.
I completely agree. It would have broken the mock draft simulators. A++++. I can't believe you got all those players and you were patient on Shedeur Sanders and you got him in the second. This is before the fall, right? The one dynamic though is because all that drama happened, is there more drama, right? Like if they had just drafted Dylan Gabriel late, it's like, you know, they're just taking a shot on Dylan Gabriel. Shedeur Sanders is their guy. Now it's like a little bit more drama in the building. And look, I don't want to overrate the reaction of the Browns. I need a reaction for every pick. If we could go back and if we could get side-by-sides on how the Browns draft room reacted to every pick, I just need to know if it was tempered a little bit on Shedeur Sanders or if they're just like business, golf clap, act like you've been there before, unlike other draft rooms. I need to know. Because that reaction made me a little bit, is this the owner? Is this the owner coming in saying, get Shedeur Sanders? But yeah, process-wise, taking swings at quarterbacks, always near and dear to my heart. Because I did suggest this a month ago for the Browns.
And because it's now a 5th round pick, like the risk is so small now. Like, yeah, the drama might be much higher now that he's a 5th round pick, et cetera. But if it is a giant headache, if it is a giant media circus, a huge pain in the ass, and he's not worth it, and he shows nothing when he rocks up, cut him after training camp, cut him in training camp. It doesn't matter. Like people cut 5th round picks relatively regularly. It's not a big deal. And you still came out of the draft with Mason Graham, with Carson Swessinger, with Quinshon Judkins, Harold Fannin, Dylan Sampson, Dylan Gabriel, and a 1st round pick next year. Even if you take Shedeur out of that draft, it looks pretty good. And, you know, you could cut him with zero sort of negativity, essentially. So I think that's a great draft by the Browns.
Look, there was a lot of teams that I cut that I was close to saying, hey, I love this draft. I mean, I hate not having Houston up here. I think there's so much to like about Houston's draft. I liked the Giants trading up, but I equally liked the Texans trading down. And their first 3 picks, the 2 Iowa State receivers, Jaden Higgins, Jalen Knoll, Ariante Ursary, the tackle from Minnesota. Those are the key picks for me there for Houston. But I thought that process, I mean, those are the most important picks. That process was great. Dallas was close for me. I just didn't love, like, they had one of my least favorite first round picks for the second straight year for Dallas. So, you know, again, if they go back and if they took Walter Nolan, for me, it doesn't matter. But like for me, if they took Walter Nolan first, and then we'll talk later about Donovan Azaraku, Shavon Revel. I mean, I would love that draft. They might be my favorite draft if that was the order that Dallas went. So
agreed.
That's what happens here. Like if there's a pick that you just don't seem to like or whatever it might be.
Learning afterwards that they were debating between Walter Nolan and Tyler Booker is damaging to your opinion of the Dallas Cowboys draft.
And it could have really quick. They may have forced a guard in round 2 and not taken Azaraku, you know. But Sam, this is why we preach this. Don't go in with needs, right? If Dallas felt like they had to get a guard, if they had a guard in free agency, they could have maybe taken Nolan, and they would have had, I think, a much better draft.
Yeah, it definitely, it's going to be damaging to your perception of it because you're like, man, if they had drafted Walter Nolan, we could have had options in the second and third and blah, blah. But the other thing is a little bit like the Browns. I think if you look at just the players and then you change the order, like if I told you that they drafted Donovan Azaraku at 12, Savon Revel or Tyler Booker at 44, and then got Revel at 76, you know, in that order, I would feel a lot better about it. Or, you know, if you just change like the 3 players, if you simply redid the order, I think you would feel a lot better about that Dallas haul. And then later in the draft, I think they made some nice moves. So they added a couple of other players that I like as well. So yeah, I think they had a better draft maybe than it feels like because it was like poisoned from the outset by that one of the I don't want to say worst picks, but one of my least favorite picks of the first round with Tyler Bookett going at 12 overall. The chat has mentioned it a couple of times. The Carolina Panthers and the late Dr. Eric Eager, still working for the Panthers. I thought they had a really good draft as well. I like a lot of what Carolina did. And they did it in a way that we didn't really anticipate necessarily. Everyone had been throwing an edge rusher to them in the first round all the way. They go Tedero and McMillan, and then they come back and get multiple edge rushers. Nick Scorton in the second, Princely Uman-Mielen in the third. Love both those guys as value hits at that point. And then even later in the draft, I think they made a couple of nice picks. Cameron Jackson, the big defensive tackle in round 5. Jimmy Horn Jr., the Colorado underrated wide receiver, sort of speed, vertical threat slot guy. I really like him as a 6th round pick as well. So I think the Panthers did good work too.
I agree on the Panthers. And we've had so many conversations, Sam, about you probably get your edge rushers in the first round. And there's a really good history of getting 2nd and 3rd round wide receivers. Well, the Panthers did it in reverse. Right. But I think in this year's draft, it made sense. Getting Tedero and McMillan at 8, one of my favorite picks, and then Nick Scorton and Uman-Mielen in the 2nd and 3rd round. Scorton was a fringe first rounder, I believe, in most drafts. Uman-Mielen, probably more of a 2nd round pick. In this draft, he's a 3rd because of the depth at edge. So I think they played the board the right way. They also traded up, I think, for both of those players. So I think they made some targets and made sure that need and value matched up. So, yeah, I completely agree. I think they did a nice job. I hate not talking about the Bills as well. I'm not going to list every favorite team.
That's the other one that definitely needs to be mentioned.
So in Bills fans were asking why the run on corners, and I mentioned on our 6th round thing, if you need to load up on depth at certain positions, O-line, D-line, corner, and receiver. I want crazy depth there, but especially corner and especially the defensive line. And that was the draft for the Bills. Corner, 3 defensive linemen. Their first 4 picks had all been first round adjacent at some point in this process as far as mock drafting, including Deion Walker in the 4th round, Landon Jackson in the 3rd round. So I think they're talented guys who have that proverbial upside, especially Walker. And then, Maxwell Hairston in the 1st at corner, Darian Strong as a corner in the 6th, who's probably more of a 3rd or 4th round value. So, yeah, there's a lot to like about what the Bills did and just loading up on defense, a place where they've had numerous injuries and was a big part of why they lost to the Chiefs each of the last 2 years.
Yeah, agreed. I think Landon Jackson was a steal. I think Dorian Strong is a steal. They got multiple players throughout this draft, I think, that were really, really good value. And, they attacked it in volume. Like, it's multiple different ways of drafting well. Again, I think the Bills were one of those teams that was difficult to cut from the final list.
I'll just answer it right now. Eric Novella, super chat, appreciate it. What grade would you give the Giants? I think it's an A. I mean, I like, and again, most people grade like, did you draft players I like? I'm guilty of that. Did you draft players I like? There's a little bit of that. Did you draft them at the right time? Was your process sound, right? Did you give up too many picks to trade up or whatever? I think the Giants ticked a lot of boxes, got the right players at the right time, and they traded up for a QB. So I like a lot of what the Giants did in this draft. That's why they're in my top 5.
I mean, ultimately, there has to be part of that in this whole process, right? Like, did I like the player or not? Otherwise, what's the point? Like, yeah, we can all look objectively, how do they do versus a consensus ranking, right? Just mathematically. But there's also got to be a part of, like, do you agree with that ranking? Do you think, now I'm not saying you put all of your, like, you don't rank your opinion as, 85 times as valuable as the consensus mock. Otherwise, you end up doing what NFL teams used to do, where they're just like, I don't care where everybody else has these players, I'm just drafting them, right? We know that's not a good way of doing things because almost nobody is good at that, right? Nobody is so much better than groupthink at evaluating talent. So, you look at the consensus board, you see, is there a difference between these consensus players and where they were drafted? Or you take a player that was drafted at the right area in consensus, and the sort of tiebreaker with these becomes, well, did I like that player as much as the consensus or not, or otherwise, right? So it's got to be part of your evaluation, whether you like the players or not.
So, yeah, there's a lot of drafts I like. Let me throw one more team out there really quick because I've raved about them for a while. It's the Bucs. I just think the Bucs, you called it, just hitting the ball down the fairway. The way I described it is, dating back to last year, almost all of their picks, you're not guessing what they're going to be at the next level. They're just good football players across the board. I know that sounds generic, but we're not explaining upside. You're not explaining if this thing happens and that thing happens, this guy could figure it out, or he's got, it's just these guys are good football players that they can plug and play, and they've done that specifically for 2 straight years. So I really like what the Bucs have done, and they're in my fringe as far as favorite drafts for 2 straight years now.
Yeah, we described them as like having the safest draft in the world. They were just every single pick. It was like they asked themselves, who is the safest player we could possibly pick? And they went like 5 straight, extremely safe picks. And then roll the dice with Tez Johnson at the bottom of the draft, the Oregon gimmick wide receiver, I guess we can call him, in the 7th round, though. So it's like, who cares if you're risking it? Like, Tez Johnson in the 7th, guy ran a slow 40. He's 155 pounds. He's 5'10". Who cares? He barbecues people with quickness and route running in the 7th round. Like, absolutely get that guy in.
Let me tell you what messes with my brain so much. Anytime you have fewer than 7 picks, it's hard for me to like it. And the Bucs only had 6, but I still liked it. The Bengals had fewer than 6. So here's the difference. They had 6. They had fewer than 7. So the Bengals come away with a running back and 2 linebackers and an upside edge. But like when 3 out of your 6 picks, it's like linebackers and running backs out of only 6, it's hard for me to get behind it, right? And the Bucs come away with 2 receivers, 2 corners, and 2 edges. They hit the valuable positions, and they got good football players at them. So that's what I like about the Bucs draft. All right.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the Bengals draft is basically going to come down to what Shamar Stewart becomes. Like, he's such a high variance player in the middle of the 1st round. If he hits a high end of his range of outcomes, the rest of the draft basically doesn't matter. If he hits a low end, the rest of the draft doesn't matter either, but for different reasons.
And I didn't hate Demetrius Knight or Dylan Fairchild. I'm just saying, like, when you have 6 picks and you get 2 linebackers, a running back, a guard, and maybe a second guard/tackle, and Jalen Rivers, the lower value positions in a year, we only have 6 picks. Doesn't feel great. That's all. It just doesn't feel great. Let us know in the chat. Who's your favorite draft? Who did we forget? I saw some Titans love in there. I think after Cam Ward, they did fine. They got players a lot of people like. I really like Kevin Winston Jr. I like when they got Io Manor, wide receiver out of Stanford. We'll go team by team over the next few days, though. Next up, I want to go round by round. Did you put this list in somewhere?
It's not in it's not in that chat. No.
Oh, you're going to surprise me here. So let's go round by round. We'll start in round 1, and we'll give our favorite pick by round. So I haven't seen your list yet. I'm curious to know where you go. What was your favorite 1st round pick, Sam?
My favorite pick of the 1st round was Gray Zabel to the Seattle Seahawks.
Wow.
I love Gray Zabel as a player. Interior offensive lineman, played tackle at North Dakota State. He's going to be a guard or a center at the next level. He was a very good tackle at North Dakota State, obviously a step up in competition, was the best player at the Senior Bowl for the entire week, playing not just 1, but 3 new positions to him. They played him at both guard spots and at center, and in all 3, he was dominant and playing sometimes like a different position each rep. Like, he'd be at guard, and then the next rep he's at center, the next rep he's at the other guard spot, and he was just consistently dominating all of these defensive linemen. So from that point on, I've been like, how high can you push him in the 1st round? And at that point, he wasn't even really a consensus 1st rounder. For Seattle, it was by far their biggest area of need. They don't like doing that, and they just didn't overthink it. They just went, this guy's awesome. We can play him at any one of the 3 interior spots. Just draft him. Just pull the trigger and accept that it might not be, optimal draft strategy, but who gives a crap? Like, it's the right pick.
So the biggest thing for you was Seattle kind of coming out of their comfort zone, drafting the interior offensive lineman. You had been pounding the table for that the entire offseason. And I had some doubts. I didn't think they were going to listen to you. We had a big argument about it during one of our mock drafts. I was like, no. Take the best player available. Get the guard in the 2nd round. That's how you got to play it. And they went and did it. They went and grabbed the guard/center, whatever you want to call them right now. I haven't had a minute to listen to the press conferences. Let us know if John Schneider or Mike McDonald confirmed where Zabel's going to start. But he's starting on the interior of the offensive line somewhere for Seattle. So, yeah, I respect that. I went with Tetairoa McMillan as my favorite pick by the Carolina Panthers. And again, I have a soft spot for not reaching for needs, and when you take what feels like the best player at the time. And guilty, right? We sat there every time we talked about the Panthers, we only talked defense. And I'm a take the best player at the most valuable position guy. That's at my heart. And every time we brought up edge rushers, we said, there's a question here, question there. There's questions about McMillan. I get it. I still like him, though. I like him as a top 10 player. So you get him at 8, and then they fulfilled the rest of the strategy, like we talked about a few minutes ago, by getting 2 edge rushers who are very talented, and I think probably top 40, top 50 players in this draft. So McMillan first, though, I think it's a fantastic weapon for Bryce Young. It knocks Xavier Legette down a peg on the depth chart, so you get a little bit less pressure on last year's first rounder. And I think McMillan, high volume, win at every level, just good all around, big bodied receiver, sure handed for Bryce Young. So I liked this pick quite a bit for the Panthers because I think this was a mature pick by the Carolina Panthers, taking a really good player and not reaching for defensive needs.
The Carolina Panthers offense and Bryce Young next year could be really exciting. I mean, it's his turnaround last year was remarkable, and the way he was playing late in the season was pretty fantastic without a great receiving core around him, right? Like, the offensive line is very good. The receiving core was serviceable, but it wasn't amazing. If McMillan is the guy that the first round pick suggests he could be, if Legette takes a step forward, if Coker continues to develop, or if Jimmy Horn becomes a player, if Jatavian Sanders develops, like, that offense could become pretty spectacular pretty quickly.
All right, so that's our favorite pick from round 1. What was your favorite pick from round 2?
There were a lot of picks in round 2 that I really liked. Difficult nailing this down to one. I ended up going with Luther Burden to the Chicago Bears, pick number 39. A lot of these guys fell to the second round, and you could sort of see the reasoning for some of it, whether it's injuries, whether it's off-field concerns, whatever. And some of that applies to Luther Burden as well. But I think people have forgotten how freaky talented he is, right? I've been saying this all the way through the draft process. 2023, Luther Burden is a top 10 player in this draft. And if you just forget everything and just look at that and remind yourself, like, how good he is, how talented he is, and now you just plugged him into the Chicago Bears offense that's revamped their offensive line, that's brought in Ben Johnson, one of the best offensive minds in the game, that's got Caleb Williams, former number 1 overall pick, who was talked about as, an incredibly talented prospect, with 2 other receivers already there to take attention away from him. Like, things are set up, and, Colson Loveland, like, legitimate threat added to the mix already. Things are set up for Luther Burden to be able to come in and just do what he does best, which is make plays and make fools miss.
It's another one, Sam, where so many people, myself included, we expected running back for the Bears. They didn't take a running back until round 7. Kyle Monangai from Rutgers, right? Who's just he might have a chance. That dude runs hard. He might have a chance, 7th round running back. So many people wanted a running back there. And it's like wide receiver 3 or running back. And Travion Henderson had just come off the board. Maybe they would have taken him if New England didn't snatch him up the pick before. But I really liked it, man. I'm always a believer in getting to 3 to 4 receivers that are difficult to cover. And I think the Bears move in that direction with Burden. So, yeah, I like that one quite a bit. I went Donovan Ezeraku from the Dallas Cowboys as my favorite second rounder. Would have taken him in the first, would have been happy in the first. He was the guy at that time we were saying, hey, Ezeraku's probably each of our favorite players on the board, right? Will Johnson was still there at that time, but we knew there's an injury. Mike Green was still there at the time. We knew there's off-field. But Ezeraku, I thought, was great value for Dallas, position of value, and has a chance to compete for a starting spot right away. My camera doing all right? Am I back?
Just about. Yeah. Well, you were until you said that.
Wonderful. Doing great. Give me round 3, Sam.
Round 3. Again, I liked quite a lot of the picks in round 3. I had a couple names written down actually before I ended up going back to this. And I was like, value, blah, blah, blah. And I went, no, it's favorite. My favorite pick. My favorite pick of the third round is Darian Porter, the cornerback from Iowa State, going to the Raiders at 68. So pretty high in the third round. But I kept coming back to this idea that, like, I think he has first round tape. It's just 7 games of it, right? First round tape, first round ability, physical tools, 6'3", 195 pounds, who runs a 4.3 and jumps out of the gym and has crazy agility drills. Like, these are all first round traits. It's just, he's got such a weird backstory of 6 years of play, 64 games, and only 7 starts and only 3 seasons playing cornerback. I love the risk. I love like the gamble on what he could become. The Senior Bowl scared me a little bit from being just, too bullish on him. But in the 3rd round, I think that's a steal. Like, I think that's exactly where you want to take that kind of roll of the dice.
Buddy, the types of players that the Raiders added, size, speed, just unique type. Jack Besh is a unique player. Dante Thornton's a unique player. JJ Pegues, there a lot of unique players for their position, body types, styles. Kind of like that about the Raiders draft, including Darian Porter when you talk about unique player, size, speed, and story.
Dude, they should sell tickets to the one-on-one practice reps between Darian Porter and Dante Thornton Jr.
Yes.
Like 2 giant, freaky, fast people.
Let's go to training camp just to watch it. Let's go call up Chip and Spy Tech. Let's do it.
Stay at circuit.
My favorite 3rd rounder. How about this one? Also Cowboys. Chavone Revel, cornerback out of East Carolina. The Cowboys had my favorite 2nd and 3rd round pick because I think Revel, again, fringe 1st round type of talent. The only thing I'm hesitant on is his age and the injuries, right? He's coming off the injury. Yeah. He's a little bit older. And to repeat for the millionth time, like when you're looking at the age thing, you just have to watch the film and say, this guy was 23. This guy was older when he was doing the things that are impressive. And you're watching him, play against 21-year-olds, but also the other prospects you're scouting are 21 and have theoretical more growth potential. But I just think Revel's ball skills, size, length, movement skills, as you mentioned in your notes, to get him in the 3rd would be outstanding. That's what the Cowboys did. I would have taken him higher. So, yeah, I think the value was really nice there for Dallas.
Yeah, agreed. I like it just because I nailed the area where he went in my notes. It's like I love the gamble in the 3rd round, but I'd be uncomfortable taking him higher. So, yeah, it makes sense.
Who's your favorite 4th rounder, Sam?
Q Robinson to the Denver Broncos. Dude, Q Robinson was one of my favorite, 2nd wave, day 3 type of prospect that I came across. You watch his tape, and you were sort of, I was working my way down the list of consensus players and, down the rankings effectively when I was watching the tape. And the first guy for a while that I turned on the tape and was like, oh, this is physical tools that we can work with here. Like, he has absolute legit juice on day 3. He's a weird career where he didn't play much on defense, has more special teams experience than he does defensive experience. But despite that lack of experience, we've got legitimate speed and athleticism and burst. We've got legitimate speed and threat around the edge. We have an inside counter off that. And we have a powerful, power move with a long arm up the middle where he can just run through offensive tackles. So those 3 things together, he can beat you to the outside. He can beat you to the inside off that outside counter. And then he can run right through you with power, with speed to power. Those 3 things mean you can be a day 1 situational pass rusher in the NFL, right? If you can't do anything else, and I think he probably can, you can have day 1 success being a situational pass rusher because you can attack an offensive tackle in 3 separate ways and have him concerned about all of them. I think Q Robinson in the 4th is really good value.
A lot of Broncos fans didn't love the draft, and I liked Jahdae Barron in the 1st, and we both loved Q. So that was for a 4th rounder. I love that as a developmental edge prospect. There were some good 4th rounders there. I went Jalen Royals for the Chiefs. You probably saw my list and wanted to take him, but the Chiefs just kept ticking a lot of boxes where I saw a path to players playing and contributing. And that's not always the way you want to judge it, but I thought Royals was a 2nd round type of player at receiver. Good route runner. Yep. We don't know what's going to happen with Rashee Rice, for the next couple of years, if he's ever going to be suspended. And I think he's different from what they have. He's not as dynamic as Worthy or Marquise Brown. I don't think he's as good as after the catch as Rashee Rice has shown. Just a good all-around receiver that I think can, if he needed to be a higher volume target, I think he could do it. And so I think he could become a Pat Mahomes favorite over there. And you're getting that in the 4th after already stacking up some other wins. So again, that's why I liked the Chiefs draft overall, but Royals in particular, getting him in the 4th, I think he could become a big-time contributor here for the Chiefs.
Yeah, I think Royals is a really good player. I think it's a great landing spot for him too.
How about round 5? There was some more. I saw some of your favorites here in round 5.
Yeah, I had liked quite a few picks in round 5 as well. Braden Swinson to New England, I ended up going with pick 146. Again, I think Swinson's just a really good player. I genuinely thought he was an early day 2, maybe he could sneak into round 1 type of player. And he ends up being available all the way down the 5th round. The Patriots bring him in. Again, another place where there's a pathway to playing time for him with the Patriots. But I had him ranked like inside, what I have him ranked? Inside my top 10 somewhere on the defensive line. Like, he's a really, really effective player.
I had a feeling you might go with Swinson. I considered him, but best 5th round pick is Shedeur Sanders, Sam. Shedeur in the 5th. Yeah. That's my favorite. It's my favorite for the story, the drama. I feel good for Shedeur getting drafted that we don't have to deal with, that he doesn't have to deal with going undrafted, and that he went to a place where he can compete for starting quarterback job. He's got a legit path to play. And if he can play, if he shows anything, just like if Dylan Gabriel shows anything, they'll get on the field. Browns aren't going to be tied to Joe Flacco or Kenny Pickett. So Shedeur has an opportunity there. We've talked about him quite a bit. We'll continue to talk about him. So it's a fascinating story, but it was also at that point probably just a good process move by the Browns there.
Yeah, I mean that's the best value pick in the draft, in my opinion. I'm not sure it's my favorite exactly, but it's definitely incredible value given what expectations were.
All right, let's go round 6. What was your favorite pick?
So my favorite pick in round 6 is Ahmad Hassanain to Detroit. I just think the combination of that guy being connected with Dan Campbell is too much fun to ignore. He's an amazing backstory. He's like a great feel-good story as a prospect, as a player. First Egyptian to be drafted to make the NFL. A real like hard-working, hustle type of player. As I said, the thing that really made me notice him in the first time was when we went to the combine, and he's there like barking at the coaches before every drill, before every snap, and they're barking back, right? The two guys are like going at each other. Dan Campbell's going to love that. Dan Campbell is going to have a statue of that kid built by the end of training camp, and he's going to have him in there in the meeting rooms. He's going to be, referring to him during his motivational talks. He's going to find a way of using him on the roster. I love that connection.
You and I try to make our rounds during training camp. We didn't get to Detroit last year. Just to watch him practice might be worth the trip for us, a few hours away here. My favorite 6th rounder was Luke Newman, the guard out of Michigan State going to the Bears. Just talked about this a little while ago in our round 6 recap, but Newman comes from Holy Cross, 2-time All-American, FCS, and you get to see him in the Big Ten. He held his own. Good footwork, kind of a good zone blocker. I think he could be a good zone blocker at the next level. Movement skills, gets in position, and pretty good pass protector. So I really liked Luke Newman. He was one of my late round sleepers on the offensive line. There's a few guys I wanted to see drafted late, and it was Newman, one of my old Little League teammates, who's now a coach at James Madison, was one of his coaches at Holy Cross. I was texting with him a few weeks back. I'm like, hey, kind of like Luke Newman. He goes, yeah, I like Newman. He likes him. And boom, 6th round, Luke Newman. So there's your sleeper Bears, Luke Newman, 6th round guard from Michigan State. Let's wrap it up. Round 7. Who you got?
Curtis Rourke, quarterback from Indiana, going to the San Francisco 49ers. I tweeted out that Curtis Rourke was my sort of sleeper quarterback this draft. Actually, he wasn't even a sleeper. I had him ranked as like the 7th quarterback in this draft. And now he's connecting with Kyle Shanahan. And look, that's like 2 positions, right? If you tell somebody that a running back or a quarterback are going to be coached by Kyle Shanahan, it's going to make you perk up, right? You're going to raise your eyebrows. You're going to pay attention. Curtis Rourke, I think, has got the ability to start at the next level. Like, he's maybe athletically limited, maybe the physical tools are limited, but he's got exceptional touch on his passes. He's a good diagnoser of defenses. He understands how to layer the ball in, how to hit the right guy. I would love to see him in a Shanahan offense. Like, I think it's a perfect fit there. I'm really excited by that even if it's only preseason high-end backup stuff, I think Kyle Shanahan can turn him into something. I
thought you were going to say you tweeted out that he makes Brock Purdy expendable, because Kyle Shanahan could turn anybody into his next Brock Purdy, 7th round quarterback. We know what he did with the last one, right? That's how it works. By the way, some years there's a lot of QBs that just don't get drafted. There ended up being a ton. Every one of those developmental quarterbacks and then some ended up getting drafted rounds 5 through 7. So there's a lot of QBs at least getting drafted, competing in the preseason. It's going to be fun. Round 7 for me, Tez Johnson. He came off the board, went to the Bucs. It's like an upside pick for the Bucs, but he's just another good. I put it in the same class as the other one. He's just a good football player. He's just a good football player who, he ran 4.51. And last year, Bucky Irving, he had an underwhelming workout, just like Tez Johnson did. But you watch them on the field, it's like he looks fast, he looks quick. The defense seems to think that he's quick. He just ran right by him. Yeah, so Tez Johnson could be a steal. Now, as always, in round 7, like, what's the path here, right? They've got 4 legitimate receivers, including Emeka Egbuka. What's the path to the field? Still love it as a pick in the 7th round, though, for the Bucs.
And he's unique on that depth chart. Yeah, like, it's a stacked wide receiver room in front of him, but he brings something to the table that none of the other guys do. Like, nobody has anything like the quicks that Tez Johnson is bringing to the table. I mean, you watch those Senior Bowl reps where he's one-on-one against people. You watch his plays over the middle, just carving up people with quickness. The Bucs have good receivers. They don't have anybody that moves like that. So, I think that's a way that, like, 6th, 7th round picks, late day 3 players can find their way to playing time, to some significant contributions if they bring something completely different to the table. He's also presumably at that. I don't know if they want to expose him to return plays, kick return, punt return, but that's another way in that, those other guys aren't necessarily going to be doing. So it's tough because it's a loaded room, but I think there's a pathway to doing something and sticking there.
We compared him quite a bit to Tank Dell. Different players, but same idea of slight player that's really good at football. And when we put Tank Dell's Senior Bowl highlights up there a couple of years ago, I mean, he was just toying with defensive backs. Tez wasn't exactly at that level, but makes corners fall over, in and out, shiftiness, in and out of his breaks, just outstanding. So you get that in the 7th. I love that.
People, because of that Tank Dell comp, which I don't love anyway, by the way, I don't think it's a great comp for Tez Johnson. But because of that comp, people were sort of thinking that maybe Tez will still go quite high, right? Tank Dell just showed you could still be really good at that size. I actually wonder if that comp hurt him because Tank Dell's had these back-to-back injuries, and the second of which may be career-changing. I wonder if teams are actually looking at that and going, hey, the last guy we tried to give a shot at this kind of size is now on the shelf and may never be the same again. Like, maybe it's just too small to be good. I wonder, or maybe it was just, completely too independent, random, whatever.
Again, Steve's penchant for ignoring injuries. I still see Tank Dell as a hit, right?
We're heading into
year.
His injury doesn't exist to you.
Is he injury prone, or did he just, run into some bad luck over the last couple of years? But as a player, he's been outstanding. Because that's the question: was could his size, Tank Dell, could his size play at that level? Yes, it can, but can he hold up? Yeah, that's still a question because he's been hurt each of the last 2 years. So, yeah, I think you're right. It could have hurt him during this whole process. All right, this is our draft review 2025. We're going kind of quick, high level right here across the draft. We're going to go team by team, starting with the AFC and NFC North. Tomorrow, Sunday, we're going to go through every single team, 8 teams per day, 2 divisions per day for the next few days. So every team will get your love. And one of my favorite things, Sam, is actually recapping what the other people graded these things and seeing the differences and seeing some people love the draft, some people don't love them. That's my favorite way of just evaluating other people's grades because I don't really care about putting grades on them. But we'll look through the draft grades as well over the next few days.
We need our guy, Rene Bugner, to come up with his giant composite sheet of the draft grades.
That's part of the reason why we wait. I like using Rene's comp grades and bringing those to the table during the discussion. So the other thing we wanted to hit now, free agency's over. There's still some offseason to be had here. There's always a post-draft move. Some players are going to get released. Depth charts are getting crowded. Some people there's a second wave, third, fourth wave of free agency still to go. But through the draft now, Sam, who's your favorite offseason for any NFL team?
Yeah, so I think there's, again, a few teams that would be in conversation for this. The team that I would say have done the best job overhauling their team, their roster, their everything, their organization this offseason are the Chicago Bears. And let's start right at the beginning, right? They go into the offseason. They need a new coach. They get the prize. We don't know if he'll be good yet, right? We haven't seen it. Who knows? But teams have been trying to get Ben Johnson to be the head coach of their franchise for a couple of years now. And every time he's been like, no, I'm going to stay in Detroit. We've got work to finish. The Bears got it done. The Bears were able to get Ben Johnson in the building to be their new head coach. Number one, he's the sort of the prize of the head coaching carousel. Number two, I think specifically for Chicago, it was a good move as well, because you've got Caleb Williams with a relatively underwhelming rookie season after such incredible hype as the number one overall pick. The weaponry that they assembled around him last year didn't quite work the way we expected it to. So Ben Johnson comes in. He can work with Caleb Johnson. In free agency, they then set around completely rebuilding that offensive line. Ben Johnson's been working with one of the best offensive lines in the NFL in Detroit. They trade for Jonah Jackson. They trade for Joe Thuney. They bring in Drew Dahlman from Atlanta at center. That's theoretically 3 new starters on the offensive line, or at least 2, with Jonah Jackson being a little bit more of a question mark. They then bring in Grady Jarrett, a couple more players in free agency for other positions. But that's a huge amount of the offensive line rebuilt. And then they come into the draft. I think they have a nice draft as well. I didn't love it. I think the longer it went, the more I sort of disliked their picks a little bit. But the top of the draft, right? Colson Loveland, potential game changer at tight end as an athletic receiving weapon, somebody that could, replace what they lost in Keenan Allen as he moved on. Luther Burden, we talked about as well, one of my favorite picks in the entire draft. He can be a dynamic player. Ozzie Trapillo, the offensive lineman from Boston College. So I just think from top to bottom, this is a team that's taken several significant steps in the right direction in one offseason.
Yeah, I completely agree, especially the offensive line overhaul and what they were able to do to invest there. And part of that offseason is Ben Johnson. I know you accidentally said Caleb Johnson there, Caleb Williams. I know what you meant. In case anybody tries to correct you, Sam, we know it's Caleb Williams. But we have also, really quick on that, recent history of a lot of QBs making a year 2 jump. A lot of QBs. Joe Burrow did it. As I forget everybody that did it. Josh Allen took till year 3, but Lamar Jackson won the MVP in year 2. Like, there was Mahomes was his second year, was his first year starting, but second year after getting drafted. Caleb Williams, I think, is more set up. Look, we thought he was in a good situation last year. I think he's in a better situation this year, especially with Ben Johnson calling the plays. So maybe it's cheating, because I think my best offseason, also a team with a rookie quarterback, that's the Commanders. And so it's a bit of a cheat code, because you can go nuts in free agency, go nuts on the offensive line, but you also have to take advantage of that. And I think the Commanders have done that. They flip a 5th for Deebo Samuel. They make, I think, just a really creative move to get Laramie Tunsil at left tackle. It is difficult to get tackles right now, right? The Patriots drafted Will Campbell. We saw Membu. We saw Kelvin Banks all go in the top 10. Josh Simmons, maybe a steal at 32 for the Chiefs. But none of those guys are sure things. You know what you're getting in Laramie Tunsil. And they got really creative in trading multiple draft picks to go get Laramie Tunsil. And so that's an aggressive move to go get 2 star players in Laramie Tunsil and Deebo Samuel while you have the funds, right? You have the freed up money with Jaden Daniels. But then you pair it with the draft. And again, normally I love high volume drafting, but they've been aggressive. They brought in Marshawn Lattimore last year and gave up some picks. But I like the draft picks too, because you bring in Josh Connerly at tackle, who I think at worst becomes a developmental option, but he's competing at right tackle. Trey Amos at corner. You have a guy competing and maybe insurance for Marshawn Lattimore. Even Jalen Lane as just a pure one of those speed receivers to add a different dynamic to the offense. So for a draft that only had 5 picks, I think they also did a really nice job, in addition to all the other aggressiveness, right? They were aggressive, therefore had to punt on a whole bunch of draft picks, but I still think it's a pretty good haul for those 5 picks. So an aggressive offseason, again, for GM Adam Peters. And by the way, bringing back Zach Ertz, bringing back Bobby Wagner, those were the subtle moves he did last year, bringing those guys back for, on 1-year deals, bringing them in on 1-year deals, now bringing them back on 1-year deals. So really like what Adam Peters is doing in Washington and taking advantage of having Jaden Daniels as a first contract QB.
Yep. I think they've done a good job too.
We did want to get to the undrafted free agents. Any other off seasons though, really quick?
The Patriots, I think, would be pretty high on my list. I'd go to bat with the Patriots. I thought Vrabel was a good hire. Right now, we can quibble about whether he's at the Belichick coaching tree or not. Vrabel disagrees. What does he know?
I'm with him. I'm with Vrabel. He's not part of the tree. Like, he agreed with what I said. He never coached for Bill Belichick. He's not part of the coaching tree.
Either way, I like Vrabel as a hire for the Patriots. I think they've done a really good job again rebuilding. They sort of swung for the positions of need in free agency, right? They tried to get Chris Godwin. He took less money to go back to Tampa Bay. They were aiming at some of these really acute needs for them. They didn't quite get it done. And then they've sort of put themselves in that difficult corner of needing to chase positions in the draft. But I think they've done a really good job doing it, right? They got Will Campbell at number 4 overall at the top of the draft. It's a position that everyone thought they would pick for basically the entirety of the process. They got it. Travion Henderson at 38. You know, I'm not sure I'd have gone there given the other needs, but it's a good pick. It's a player that should make a difference for them. Kyle Williams in the 3rd makes it all right because Kyle Williams could have been their pick at 38, and I would have loved that. Jared Wilson, a center from Georgia, later down in even the 4th round or still in the 3rd, is a great pick. He could start in that offensive line sooner rather than later as well. And then again, Braden Swinson was one of my favorite picks in this draft. So I think they had a great draft in addition to some good signings in free agency, which didn't necessarily fill their biggest weaknesses, but they got that done in the draft. And the totality of it all, I think, is a really good offseason.
Yeah, a defense-heavy free agency with Milton Williams, Carlton Davis, an offense-heavy top few picks in the draft, and it's a completely different team. I mean, they've overhauled that roster in an offseason. So what did we just list, Sam? We just listed the teams that had the top 3 quarterbacks in the draft last year. So
very true,
right? And it's not a coincidence. They're able to overspend on a Milton Williams or spend on a Carlton Davis or make all the moves that the Commanders and Bears just did, as we said. So they're at least using that advantage, right? They're using the advantage of the quarterback. The last team I just want to throw into the mix is the Arizona Cardinals, and they're not on first contract quarterback, but their defensive line, their defense situation, just the defensive side of the ball was so bad. And every year, because we review every game, right? If you guys are just here for the offseason, Sam and I, we preview and review every game during the season. That's our thing. Monday morning, 7 a.m. Eastern, we're going through every single game for about 3 hours. And every week with the Cardinals, it's like, man, previewing them, they don't have enough defensive talent to compete. And then they'd compete, right? They'd get feisty over the last couple of years with Jonathan Gannon. But now they have some talent. And they've added Dalvin Tomlinson and Walter Nolan and Josh Sweat and Jordan Birch. And last year, Darius Robinson and Calais Campbell's there. Like, man, this defensive line or defensive front, we'll say, way better than it was. Will Johnson in the secondary as well. So I don't know. We'll see how it works. But I think a defense that needed an influx of talent, they at least have it on paper between free agency and the draft. So I like a lot of what the Cardinals have done this offseason.
Yeah, good offseason.
All right, let's wrap it up with this. Some guys went undrafted. Who's the best available? We're at this point. It's always a fun time where everyone's tweeting out, this guy signed here, this guy signed there. We got sources. What do you got? Best UDFAs.
Players that I thought should have been drafted and were not, and are therefore amongst the best available undrafted free agents. Xavier Restrepo, the Miami wide receiver. I understand why he didn't. The dude ran a 4.8, right? That's a tough sell when you're a small slot receiver, 5'10", 209 pounds or whatever he was. Weird body type, horrible workout, horrible 40 time, but a good football player. Like, it's one of those ones where, day 3, you're making these exceptions all over the place for guys that are good football players and don't have the athleticism. Restrepo fits into that bucket, as does Willie Lampkin. Didn't have a good workout, is my height, weighs 280 pounds. I swear to God, that guy can start at center at the NFL level and will at some point. Maybe he'll have to earn it as a gimmick somewhere, but that dude's going to be a starter at some point. I swear, it's going to happen.
You're stealing my
Jared
player.
Ivey, another example. Jared Ivey, the Ole Miss edge rusher. Another guy that just had a horrible, horrible workout, and it probably cost him being drafted. I think that guy's got arguably day 2 talent, but the workout was rough. He's kind of a tweener as well. Might have to be a defensive tackle at the next level, so that's a tough sell. Very similar to Carl Brooks, right? Who was trapped sort of between He was an edge rusher in college, but he was 300 pounds, so he's going to have to play inside at the next level. Had a terrible workout. So it's like, where do you put that guy? And he went very, very low. 6th round, I think he dropped himself to. Same kind of idea. Lan Larison, the great Lan Larison, went undrafted. Though I've seen he's signing with the Patriots, according to him. And then all the IPP guys, right? Our guy, Dominic Fevrier McPherson, was really bullish on this class. Thought they would have up to 2 of these guys drafted. I think they'd had 1 drafted for 7 straight years. No IPP guy drafted so far, or drafted this year. So they're all going to have to sign on as UDFAs.
Did you mention Restrepo signing with the Titans?
I did not. No, I haven't mentioned where anybody signed.
So Restrepo, I saw one report that he signed with the Titans, and so there's your reuniting with Cam Ward. I mean, we talked a lot about Restrepo being slow and not necessarily having a perfect role at the NFL level, the way slot receivers are used, but
right,
the guy's just good and gets open. Like, I think there is a path to him playing in, on the right depth chart, and the Titans might be the right depth chart for him to get out there and compete. But they've added they've added speed receiver Chimere Dike, big monster receiver Manor, and now Restrepo. So it's an intriguing group there. Yeah, give me a name.
I don't think he's amongst the best undrafted free agents, but the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have signed Mammoth, Florida defensive tackle Desmond Watson, which means they are now capable of putting a pair of defensive tackles on the field together who combined weigh 810 pounds.
So Florida could, because Cam Jackson, the Panthers draft pick, is about 350. And I was looking for plays where they rotated so much. Desmond Watson and Cam Jackson were never on the field at the same time. I may have missed a play or two here and there, but
right,
they always rotated them in and out. But you're right, and we're calling him like the tush push stopper, right? He's the guy that when they run into Philadelphia in the playoffs or something, maybe they can slow down Jalen Hurts in the tush push. I was going to say Logan Brown, the Kansas tackle, is I think he's a good developmental tackle. Round 3 is when you start to draft those guys. I thought he would go a little bit higher. You stole Willie Lampkin from me. I completely agree on him. Luke Kandra is a guard out of Cincinnati that I think deserves a spot, at least a shot to compete. Maxon Hook, Toledo safety. Elijah Badger, wide receiver out of Florida. I know some people really liked Badger. That guy can play. I think he's worth it's worth a shot for him. Nick Nash, Will Serio's buddy out of San Jose State, Biletnikoff finalist. A little bit older, but I think, athletic and high volume player. So there's always some decent talent. And I think this is a deeper group than normal, right? A lot of the COVID year type of players and a little extra group here with the undrafted.
Yeah, Tyler Batty from BYU as well slipped out of the draft entirely. Yeah, I think there's a lot of good talent available. And as I think there have been for a few years now where you get to undrafted free agents, there's still a lot of names that you like that are going to catch on with teams.
It's going to slow down. I think the COVID, because there's always these extra COVID players, and I think we're out of them now. They should be running out of steam here. Who's the last guy I was going to say? Clay Webb, Jacksonville State at guard. Jalen Walker, linebacker out of Indiana that I like quite a bit. So there's some players still out there. Keep an eye on the UDFAs. All right, man. 2025 NFL draft. I'm not sure exactly when we're going to go live tomorrow. It might be tomorrow morning. Just keep an eye out. You got to be subscribed. It helps. But we're going to go AFC and NFC North.
Not only does it help, but we are closing in now on 40,000 subscribers. So, yeah, hit that subscribe button and let's get us over the big 40K.
Yeah, get us over 40K. It's been a good weekend. Appreciate it. I cannot believe we've done it, man. It goes fast. It's a lot. How many hours have we been on air? Many hours, just you and me.
A lot.
Do you have a mug? I'm out of my mugs. I had my evening coffee already, and my mug's downstairs. Dads are hard to buy gifts for. Facts.
Uh-huh.
So just enjoy this carefully selected mug and the joy of having me as a child. Well, that's a good gift.
That's what my daughter bought me.
Presumably from Scout.
Birthday or Christmas, I don't know, whenever it was.
Mugs are always a good gift until, we have to start throwing them out. We got some mug consolidation to go. Like we have like a 90-man roster over there. We got to cut it to 53,
Oh, we've reached the point where like if I bring a new mug into the house, my wife is now expecting me to sacrifice one, and like it's one in, one out type of deal.
It's got to be an exchange. It's got to be an exchange. Anyway, we appreciate everybody for being here all throughout the weekend. We were live Thursday night, Friday night. We recapped after that, in and out throughout the day here, and this is your quick hitting NFL draft recap. But guess what? I'm guessing we have at least 8 hours left. 2 hours per.
At least.
I think an hour per division. We're going to land closer to 10 hours left of draft coverage. Maybe more. Add Thursday show, Uber recap with some guests. So 10 plus hours of coverage, we'll say, still remaining here on Check the Mic.
Big thank you there to Carver for the super chat. Appreciate all you guys, whether you super chatted or whether you just hang out with us during the draft weekend and consumed our content.
It was great hanging out with everybody during the draft. That's it. Draft recap. We appreciate it. Now we get into more recaps. AFC and NFC North is tomorrow. Hit the subscribe button on your way out. Do the thumbs up. Do all the things. Everybody have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow with more Check the Mic.